now, Mr. Speaker, I'll be doing two things in my speech. Firstly, I'm going to tell you how exactly, why exactly their policy doesn't work, how their policy fails to make men understand about the suffering of women, and therefore how their policy is pointless. And secondly, I'm going to talk about how to explain the harms of adopting their proposal. I'm going to explain how and why they are going to lose the support both from men and women, and therefore they are going to hinder the cause of feminism to a massive degree. So before that, let me just deliver one independent rebuttal to their side of the House. Now, the Deputy Prime Minister, in response to our argument, said that basically antipathy from men is unavoidable as long as the feminism movement is challenging the majoritarian view in today's society. But we think that is a very problematic conception coming from their side of the House, because, Mr. Speaker, we think to achieve most of the changes the feminism want to make, we think it is vital to gain the support from the majority of society, Mr. Speaker. For example, to reduce the sexual harassment which are occurring on the ground right now, we think we need to change the mind, Mr. Speaker, or we need to get the support or understanding from the people who are currently engaging or at least thinking that sexual harassment is not such a big problem, Mr. Speaker. Or, for example, we need to make, for example, corporations establish their internal policies against, for example, sexual harassment, or treat, for example, women in a more preferable manner, or to enact certain legislations, Mr. Speaker, in the diet which support, for example, the condition of working women. To achieve every sort of a change, we need to get the support from the majority of people on the ground, Mr. Speaker. And that is the exact reason why, in this day and age, especially considering the phase of feminism, Mr. Speaker, in which we are not just fighting for example, violence, flat violence against women, but we are trying to tackle more things, for example, how women are actually treated on the ground and so on. We think, for example, support for the working women. We absolutely need the support of the people on the ground, or understanding from the public, and that is the exact reason why we think our argument is extremely important, because they are going to reduce the support from men and women, and therefore we think they are going to hinder the cause of the feminism, which we think is extremely important. So moving on to my first point, which is about how their policy fails to gain the support and understanding from men, Mr. Speaker. Now, their basic line is this: because they are going to make men realize the suffering of women, and therefore men are going to start supporting the feminism and women's rights. But we don't think that is the case, Mr. Speaker. The first reason why is because men know that it is the feminism, Mr. Speaker, who are conducting the mirroring, and therefore they just think they just don't seriously treat, Mr. Speaker, the mirrored comments or the mirrored posts, Mr. Speaker, and because it is only the artificial products which are made by the feminism, and therefore they don't really treat or think about those posts seriously, Mr. Speaker. And they just think that feminism, which are the radical part of the society, or the radical part of women, are doing that kind of thing, and therefore they don't really seriously think about those posts, those posts, Mr. Speaker. So we don't think men are going to think seriously about the situation of the women, and even after their posts, for example, their tweets are mirrored by the feminism, Mr. Speaker. And we think. So we think rather, Mr. Speaker, they feel that feminism are, Mr. Speaker, anti-man, and basically they think that they are less likely to sympathize with the cause of the feminism are fighting for, which is to enhance the women's rights, Mr. Speaker, or make the men to treat the women as equal, Mr. Speaker. So because they think that feminism are anti-man, and because they think that feminism are representing the women, they are less likely to support, Mr. Speaker, to show the understanding to the feminism's cause or the enhancement of women's rights, and therefore we think that is counterproductive. But more than that, what's the alternative model coming from this side of the House? We think, as Sanga explained to you, for example, like we see in the he-for-she movement, feminism are, in another fashion, successfully gaining support from the man gradually, Mr. Speaker. They are not antagonizing men, or they are not treating men as enemies, Mr. Speaker. They are rather treating men as the potential supporters, and trying to explain, like we saw in, for example, Me Too movement, women are they're speaking out about their experience in a more open manner in this day and age, and men are gradually increasing support or understanding, because they now know that what women are experiencing in their daily lives. For example, because of some women speaking out on their daily experiences in Me Too movement, or for example Emma Watson making speech at the UN, men have more opportunities to know about the exact circumstances where women are living in this day and age because of more expressions from the women. And that's how we want the man to understand the situation of the women. That's how we want man to sympathize, Mr. Speaker, with the cause of feminism, Mr. Speaker. And we are seeing the success gradually right now, and that's how we want to change the society. And that's the view coming from this side of the House. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the point is we should never treat the man as enemy, Mr. Speaker, like they're going to do through the proposal. Rather, we need to continue the current movement so that men can have more understanding and deliver more support to the feminism's cause. And that's how we think their policy doesn't work. We think the status quo is much, much better for those reasons. Now, moving on to further explain the harms of the proposal. Yes.
How your country plan access to the men who have no interest with it to this moment, to the very beginning of the status.
Well, the thing is, many of the men actually are having interest because they now know that what kind of suffering women are having. We think for those men who never even have a chance to get interest in the feminism cause, we don't think both models can change the mindset of those men. So we don't think that is we don't think that is basically the target in either model. But let's further explain, Mr. Speaker. We think that even for the non-misogynistic man, our average man, Mr. Speaker, even for those people, we think in the status quo, at least they have a chance to start supporting feminism's cause because they're basically neutral, because they are not misogynists. But under their proposal, because they are going to just generalize man, Mr. Speaker, by the mirroring. For example, they are going to recreate the post saying that men are weak or men are just stupid. Men do not contribute to the economy as a result of mirroring. Men as a whole, or men as a general section of society, are now targeted, Mr. Speaker, attacked under their proposal because of the mirroring. And therefore, even a neutral man are going to start distrusting or just hating the feminism movement. And therefore, even a neutral man are going to turn against the feminism, turn against the cause of supporting women's rights. We think that is extremely problematic because we want a neutral man to be on the side of the feminism like we are doing successfully in the status quo. Even, for example, women, Mr. Speaker, even the women are going to feel hatred, will not lean toward the feminism because, Mr. Speaker, many of the reasonable female think that it is unreasonable to attack whole man, Mr. Speaker, as a general section of society, and therefore both for those neutral men and women, they are less likely to support the feminism once they adopt a proposal. For those reasons, we think it's counterproductive, and therefore we oppose.